One of the darkest landscapes of the 21st century is no longer on the battlefronts, but in the central headquarters of cities, villages, and homes. While humanity progresses in technology, communication, and science, conscience, justice, and compassion are not keeping pace. The sound of destruction rises from bombed hospitals, burned villages, and the dust of ruined schools. In Sudan, the ashes of villages are still warm. In Myanmar, the traces of a people are being erased from maps. In the forests of Congo, people are being enslaved for resources. Further away, the plight of the Uyghur Turks in Xinjiang is a quiet but systematic oppression, concentration camps, the erasure of cultural and religious identity, forced labor, and broken families. And what is happening in Gaza, in the Middle East, once again pushes the boundaries of humanity to be questioned. Cities, schools, hospitals, shelters, all become targets. Tens of thousands of civilians lose their lives. The healthcare system collapses. Schools cease to be places of refuge. In one place, massacres are carried out with bombs and cries of supremacy. In another, they are continued through re-education. Different methods, but the same aim, to eliminate those who remain and to erase their memory. Both the systematic assimilation in Xinjiang and the civilian deaths in Gaza are crimes against the collective conscience of humanity. If you would like to see an illuminating video about the atrocities committed against the Uyghur Turks, you can like this video and write your request in the comments. In this video, we will focus on why the Israelis are carrying out these brutal massacres in Palestine, and we will examine the nature of the promised land that Israelis constantly talk about. What is driving Israel to such ruthless destruction? The region of Palestine was a province of the Ottoman Empire starting from 1517. However, the Zionist movement emerged in Europe towards the end of the 19th century due to increasing pressure on Jews. The pioneer of this movement, Theodor Herzl, in his work Der Judenstaat, The Jewish State, written in 1896, advocated for the creation of a national home for Jews, especially as a solution against the anti-Semitism in Europe. Following these ideas, the first waves of Jewish immigration, Aliyah, to Ottoman Palestine began in 1882. Immigrants generally settled by purchasing land in accordance with Ottoman land laws. However, Jewish immigration during this period remained quite limited initially. During World War I, the Ottoman Empire sided with Germany, while Great Britain and France were on the opposing side. During this period, Great Britain promised a homeland in Palestine to the Arabs and, at the same time, to the Jews. British Foreign Secretary Arthur Balfour sent a letter to Lord Rothschild on November 2, 1917, announcing the establishment of a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine. However, during the same period, Great Britain also promised the Arabs that an independent Arab state would be established. These conflicting promises formed the basis of the Arab-Jewish conflicts in the following years. Following the defeat of the Ottoman Empire, Palestine came under British control. With the San Remo Conference in 1920 and the Comprehensive Resolution of the League of Nations in 1922, the region officially became a British mandate. The official duty of the Mandate administration was to facilitate the implementation of the Balfour Declaration and to encourage Jewish immigration. Starting in the 1920s, major waves of Jewish immigration began, especially due to increasing pressure in Europe. These migrations accelerated further with the rise of Nazi Germany in the 1930s. However, the Arab population in Palestine reacted negatively to the land purchases and the intensive immigration. This situation led to regional uprisings and clashes. During World War II, Jews in Europe suffered greatly due to the Holocaust, genocide. Following the war, the idea of a state for the Jews began to be viewed more favorably internationally. As a result of these developments, the State of Israel was established in Palestine in 1948. Israel, having declared its independence, immediately entered into a war with Muslim Arab states and simultaneously began to brutally oppress and systematically intimidate and massacre the Muslim population in Palestine. Not only did Israel not hide these actions, but it also received broad support in the Western world. What was the motivation? Why were their consciences silent? The fundamental motivation for the Israeli Jews to act so openly was their belief that they are the chosen people of God. This belief gives them a sense of superiority over other nations. They thus view the atrocities they commit as a sacred right or a divine duty. To learn the root of this ideology, we need to go back much further. According to the Tanakh, the religious texts of Judaism, the prophet Abraham was not merely a messenger chosen to convey God's commands to people. God addressed Abraham as follows: "I will establish my covenant between me and you and your descendants after you throughout their generations for an everlasting covenant, to be God to you and to your offspring after you." According to these understandings, the chosen status continued with the prophet Isaac and then with his descendant, the prophet Jacob. Later, the prophet Moses, the prophet of the Israelites in Egypt, became one of the most important links in this chain. In the holy text Tanakh, God commanded the Israelites, as the chosen people, as follows: "For you are a holy people to the Lord your God, and the Lord has chosen you to be a people for his treasured possession, out of all the peoples who are on the face of the earth." These expressions led to the formation of the ideas of chosenness and being a holy nation in the minds of the Jews. They believed that God loved and protected them because they were a people chosen by God, unlike other nations. This belief granted them a special status throughout history. According to this understanding found in the holy texts, actions carried out in fulfillment of God's commands were considered a sacred duty. Certain behaviors considered sinful or forbidden for others were deemed legitimate for the Israelites because they believed they were carrying out God's command. Jews, exiled throughout history, were scattered all over the world after being expelled from Palestine. Despite being marginalized and humiliated wherever they went, they managed to maintain their existence by clinging tightly to their beliefs. This nation, forged by love and hatred over centuries, continues to exist to preserve its identity. By the 19th century, pressure on Jews in Europe increased steadily. These pressures fostered the birth of an idea, Zionism. Jews now believe that the time had come to establish their own homeland and return to the lands promised by God. However, history would be written in blood once again. The systematic extermination policy of Nazi Germany became the peak of suffering for European Jewry. Millions of people lost their lives in concentration camps. This catastrophe, from the Jewish perspective, further strengthened their relationship with God, the Old Testament, and the belief in chosenness. The suffering they endured was part of God's plan. The oppressed had to rise again and reclaim the holy lands they had lost. And with this belief, the Zionist movement, capitalizing on Europe's guilt and the political power of diaspora Jews, turned its attention to the occupation of the Palestinian territories. The newly established state of Israel viewed itself as the people of their God. Accordingly, the ideology based on God's word legitimized everything: tearing down homes, burning villages, killing the innocent. None of these were crimes, because they believed they were carrying out the command of their God. Today, a large part of Israeli society continues to hold this belief. Their education systems, media, and military understanding are built upon this chosen people ideology. And not only Jews, but also some Christian evangelical groups in America have adopted this belief, seeing what Israel does as part of God's plan. The boundaries of the Promised Land, Eretz Yisrael. Another article of the covenant that the Israelites claimed to have made with God was the issue of the Promised Land, Ars Imevud. According to the narratives, God promised the land of Canaan to the Israelites as an eternal home. This belief turned into an indelible goal in their minds throughout history. The Israelites continue to view reigning again in these lands from which they were once expelled. As a divine right given to them by God. The existence of an Israeli state in the Promised Land is never sufficient ideologically for them. Because, according to Zionist thought, these lands belong only to them, only to the chosen people. It cannot be the private property of anyone else. Even a foreigner breathing on it is unacceptable. That is why Israeli civilians, even as they forcibly enter and violently evict Muslim Palestinians from their homes, do not feel remorse. Because they believe that what they are doing is not wrong, but a sacred duty to reclaim the land promised by God. For them, this is not oppression, but a struggle to reclaim the land promised by God. So, where do the boundaries of the Promised Land begin and end? there is no single answer to this question. Because the boundaries of this holy land, centered in Palestine, change according to the source. Every text, every interpretation expands the boundaries a little more. According to the Torah, one of the holy books of the Jews, every place that the prophet Abraham looked up and saw when he arrived in the land of Canaan from Haran was promised by God to him and his descendants. In some holy texts, these borders start from Edom and extend to the north. However, other sources accept the entire territory between the Nile and the Euphrates as God's promise. Over time, this belief transcends maps. Some Jewish clerics and writers expand these boundaries as much as possible. They see a gigantic region stretching from Cyprus to Kuwait, from Lake Van to the Nile River as the Promised Land. According to them, these lands are not just a geography but a symbol of God's sovereignty on earth. Undoubtedly, Israel is eager to do the same things it is doing in Palestine today and the other geographies it considers holy lands. Of course, this is not something that will happen overnight. However, just as Zionism's malevolent patience, insidious plans, and insatiable greed have never let go of their ambitions until today, they will not do so in the future either. The real issue is not so much Israel's aggressive policies, but how long the rest of the world will remain silent about it. Because unless Israel is stopped, not only Palestine but every country, every nation in the region is under threat. A child crying in Gaza today will cry in another city tomorrow. A house destroyed today will be destroyed on the border of another country tomorrow. And as long as the world remains silent about this oppression, humanity will also remain under that rubble. We hope for the existence of a world that can finally say enough to Israel's barbarity, instead of just watching. Because as long as humanity remains silent, oppression will continue to speak. And so, we conclude the video here, with the belief that justice will one day be reborn at the end of this dark story.